for the 7 types of immediate relatives, God forbid, father, mother, a spouse, brother, sister, son, daughter. They sit on low stools, which is an external expression of the fact that we feel low. And those who sit around us sit on regular chairs. We cover our mirrors because this is not a time when one should be conscious of one's own appearance. Somebody very important to us now, sadly, physically has passed away. The soul continues to live on. And then we don't want the mourners to have to bother about anything practical. So family and friends will bring food in to the house so that they will be able to have something to eat. Their needs are looked after. We don't expect them to go out of the house for prayer services, and therefore a key part of the Shiva experience is the prayers, morning, afternoon and evening, and people will come in order to create a quorum whereby services can be held in the home.
So what happens if Shiva coincides with a festival or celebration? Do the mourners continue to mourn, or is there some flexibility with that?
That's a great question. In Jewish tradition, when there is a clash between happiness and sadness, we always try to ensure that happiness will prevail. And therefore, if a Shiva enters into a festive period, the Shiva is terminated. There needs to be some part of Shiva. So if the burial takes place just before a festival commences, then one can sit Shiva, let's say, for only an hour or so, and then it is over. If a person passes away and is buried during a festival period, the Shiva will only start after the festival is over.
I think it's so important, that notion that happiness comes before the sadness.
Absolutely. We recognize sadness, we grieve. It's important that mourners should express their emotions in a healthy way, and at the same time, it's important for us to celebrate.
Yeah. So how is the end of Shiva marked?
There is no formal way to end a Shiva. It ends once we have sat down for part of the 7th day. Some people just get up. In some traditions, somebody will come along and say some words of comfort and then get the person up. In other traditions, they walk around the block or go out. There is nothing formal that is absolutely required.
I think that's great because it does allow for people to do what they feel is best and what works for them.
That is correct. And a key element of the whole Shiva experience is people are surrounding one. One is able to express one's pain and one's grief in a healthy way in the presence of others, and they are there to empathize, to say what is appropriate, and also it's very important that they should try their best not to say something that in any way will hurt the feelings of the mourners.
So can you tell me a little bit about what happens after the Shiva?
Yeah, so there is a period called Shloshim. Shloshim is the Hebrew word for 30.
Oh, God.
And for a period of 30 days following burial, when one is mourning for relatives other than father and mother, for that period of time, one doesn't go to any event of entertainment. One doesn't listen to music. One doesn't cut one's hair unless one really needs to in order to look respectful. And overall, one studies, one gives to charity in the merit of the departed, and therefore one is conscious of what has happened, but at the same time one has entered back into the regular rhythm of life. For parents, one mourns for an entire year, until the first anniversary of the death, and everything that I described for the Shloshim, the 30-day period, extends for a year for parents.
I think it's really great to see the way in which there's a transition period.
Absolutely.
To support people to kind of come back into...
We recognise that there is a journey. Of course, no two people are alike, and no two situations of grieving are absolutely the same. And a lot is left up to the individual person. To what degree they want to or don't want to do something. We are mindful of particular circumstances. And when rabbis are asked questions by mourners relating to the do's and the don'ts, they would often be mindful of this particular mourner and this situation. And the key element here is what's in the best interest of the mourner and their grieving process, and what will give appropriate honour to the deceased.
I think for many people, having a lengthy and structured approach to mourning may seem daunting or forced, but hearing you speak, I can really understand how it provides the mourners with the time and space to grieve and for the community to come together and support them. Is that your experience?
Absolutely. Another key element of mourning is the recitation of Kaddish. This is a very special memorial prayer that mourners recite, and a mourner for parents will come to synagogue to our prayers on a daily basis throughout the year in order to say the Kaddish. And obviously the Kaddish recitation at a funeral and in the Shiva house is a very emotional experience for the mourners and for those who are present. It's very meaningful and it brings us an enormous amount of comfort.
So if you were to recommend one element or one aspect of the way that you mourn in the Jewish faith that you felt might be really helpful to other cultures, what would that be?
The word empathy. To be there for the sake of others, and not to come into a Shiva house or to give greetings or to make comments because that's what I want to do. One needs to be mindful of the interests of the mourner, and to understand that no two people are alike. And if there is any doubt whatsoever as to whether some words might work or not, just keep stum, as we say. Don't say it. Because I have found that after a mourning process, the mourners will hardly ever be able to quote to you something brilliant that somebody else said, but they will certainly be able to tell you about something inappropriate that somebody said, which really offended or hurt their feelings. The most important thing is, when trying to bring comfort, be there for the sake of the mourner. And in fact, the traditional greeting that we give during the Shiva period is, Hamakom Yenachem Etchem, may the Almighty comfort you amongst the other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem, meaning you're not alone. Your grief can be linked up with all grief of the past and with grief in the future. We are with you at this particular time, and we want you to be comforted. And I think that gives an enormous amount of strength to people at a very difficult time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Uella Jackson was talking to the Chief Rabbi Ephraim Mervis. One-to-One was produced in Bristol by Sarah Blunt. And next week at the same time, Uella will be joined by the past president of the World Hindu Council UK, Dr. Gidari Ban.
Happy stories.
The deer sort of skipped off free.
With sad endings.
But destined to die in the woods.